The Democratic Party in the US has just officially nominated the first woman of color to be president after nominating 8 years ago the first woman.
I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self.
At about 35 minutes, Harris's speech was scarcely a third the length of that delivered by Donald Trump at the conclusion of last month's Republican convention. She opened her speech by talking about her family. She spoke about the lessons her mum taught her, including to never do anything half-assed.
She taught us to never complain about injustice, but do something about it. Do something about it. That was my mother. And she taught us, and she also taught us, and never do anything half-assed. And that is a direct quote. My mother had another lesson she used to teach. Never let anyone tell you who you are. You showed them who you are.
Harris also offered up a simple rejoinder to Republicans who have supported abortion bans. She also alluded to how much further Trump allies hope to restrict not only abortion rights, but also some forms of contraception and fertility treatments.
Simply put, they are out of their minds. And let's be clear about how we got here. Donald Trump handpicked members of the United States Supreme Court to take away reproductive freedom. One must ask, why exactly is it that they don't trust women? Well, we trust women. We trust women.
With this speech, Harris pitched herself as the change candidate. She did not focus on the Biden accomplishments. Instead, she kept the attention on Trump and his record.
Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails. Consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers at the Capitol. His explicit intent to jail journalists, political opponents, and anyone he sees as the enemy. Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes. Consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists, the power he will have, especially after the United States Supreme Court just ruled that he would be immune from criminal prosecution. We are not going back to when Donald Trump tried to cut Social Security and Medicare. We are not going to let him eliminate the Department of Education that funds our public schools. America, we are not going back.
Meanwhile, she also spoke about Israel's war in Gaza. Harris's pledge that now is the time to get a ceasefire deal done is not new, but her emphasis on it this time and her strenuous pledge to stand by Israel's right to self-defense, experts say, is a balancing act.
What has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself.
Harris's campaign is barely 3 weeks old, but her slogan, "We are not going back," seems universally recognizable among Democrats. But it's interesting that Harris is not offering a path forward that's wildly different from what Biden had promised. He promised to be a uniter, he promised to build up the middle class, he promised to protect democracy from Trump. Many promises remain unfulfilled, but it is remarkable how Democrats are willing to accept similar ideas just from a very different candidate.
Let us write the next great chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told.
Harris accomplished everything she wanted to in that speech. However, what matters is not what the delegates in that hall thought, but how she was viewed by the sliver of swing voters watching in a handful of battleground states. And that won't become clear for weeks, but the next big moment is her debate with Donald Trump on the 10th of September. Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV.